Just one evil lunatic, a lone gunman on his own with too many guns, goes into Christchurch and goes into a couple of mosques, shoots them up, and kills 50 innocent Muslims. And all week I'm listening to debate as to who's to blame for this atrocity. Well, we're all responsible for our own actions. So one man's to blame. The lunatic who did it, he's to blame. But it hasn't stopped the mainstream media licking their lips at the opportunity to implicate, the far right, and to reiterate numerous times how there's been four far right atrocities thwarted in the past 2 years. But they failed to mention that there's been 30 plus Islamic attacks thwarted in the past 2 years in the same period. So you think they'd report this as well in the interest of balance, but the mainstream media doesn't do balance. In fact, they only use the word balance when it comes after the word bank. So intent were the mainstream media to push their agenda to vilify the far right that they forgot to report on another atrocity happening at the same time. And that's one where dozens and dozens of Christians were being butchered in Nigeria by Muslims. So anyway, this idiot in Christchurch, this despicable excuse for a human being, what pushed him to do, we know it's his responsibility, but what caused him to do this? Well, he left a manifesto behind, and in it, it cited numerous Islamic atrocities worldwide, numerous bombings and murders and rapes, etc. So, to me, he's made his own mind up. He's decided that in his twisted opinion that what he was doing would be retribution for these Islamic atrocities. Because actions, terrorist actions, and references to them by various people are what causes radicalization on both sides. So when the Americans or the Brits drop a bomb in the East, it radicalizes people there, and vice versa. When an atrocity happens like the Manchester bombing, it's going to radicalize weak minds into thinking that retribution's the only answer. But it's not just terrorist attacks that radicalize, just everyday normal occurrences that people see in their own countries can also form prejudices in weak minds. And for this reason, I do believe that the left is very, very complicit in the thoughts and the attitudes of far right. And what I mean by this is the preferential treatment shown to minorities in the West by the left, creates resentment. Preferential treatment creates resentment, okay? Create resentment towards the giver of the treatment and the recipient. And if you just go back to your childhood days, if your parents treated one of your siblings better, you resented your parents for it, you resented your sibling for it. If your school teacher showed, favoritism to one child, that child got resented, teacher's pet, all this, and the teacher got resented. So it's human nature that if you see preferential treatment, it does, especially in weak minds, cause resentment. And in the UK, the preferential treatment towards Muslims especially, is so overt and blatant that people, the indigenous people, cannot help but see it. And this preferential treatment comes in several forms. It comes financially. In predominantly Muslim areas, the amount of government money and council money spent in them areas far exceeds those in predominantly white areas. And that's in the form of housing and even, playground parks for the children, money, given towards the building of mosques, which isn't given towards the building of churches, and even land's being given to Muslims, lands beside mosques, giving freely to Muslims in order for them to make car parks and parking spaces for the mosque. I've seen it. I know where they are. I can take you to them. But it's not just financial, in law as well. In this country, in the UK, there's a big push to criminalise any criticism of the Islamic religion. And it's even the most radical parts of Islam, which have no place in Western society. They don't even want people to criticise the radical Islam without them wanting to criminalise it. But again, there's no push to criminalise, any criticism of any other religions. So we all know, everybody knows that if I was to make a placard today and stand outside a church and on the placard it said, there is no God, Jesus is a liar, yeah, the Bible is bullshit, yeah, the worst that would happen to me is some old Christian lady get a bit offended and ask me to move on. That'd be it. But if I was to make a placard saying that there is no Allah and Islam is lies and Muhammad's a false prophet, and I stood outside a mosque, I'd be arrested within 10 minutes and I'd be charged with hate crime. What's the difference? And why? The most important question is, why is there a difference? There should be no difference. If one's a crime, both should be a crime. Again, it's preferential treatment. So the government and the government forces are also complicit. For instance, last weekend, some idiot with a hammer went into Birmingham and smashed a few windows in a few mosques. Okay, it was headline news, and the anti-terrorism police were involved. The anti-terrorism police, were investigating, right? And the guy, he didn't leave any bombs. Okay, he went to the mosque when there was nobody around. He went in the dead of the night. Okay, and he didn't riddle the place with bullets. He simply smashed a few windows, whoever the idiot was. Okay, now had that happened in a few churches, say I've done it myself in a few churches, it wouldn't make headline news. The anti-terrorism police definitely wouldn't be involved. It'd be put down to just a few scroats and a bit of vandalism. Okay, again, it's just further proof of preferential treatment. But the saddest part of that situation is this: the very next day in Parliament, an MP stood up, a female MP, of course, and her words were, with regard to the horrendous attacks in Birmingham last night, right, with regard to the horrendous attacks in Birmingham, our hearts go out to anybody affected by the attacks. The British government's hearts go out to anybody affected by a few windows being smashed in a few mosques. Now, after the convictions of the Muslim grooming gangs in Huddersfield and Oxford and Telford and wherever else, I don't remember anyone from government standing up and saying their hearts went out to the victims of the grooming tip, to the young girls whose lives have been ripped apart, young British girls' lives destroyed, but their hearts don't go out for them. So a few windows in a mosque holds more fucking sway in this country than the lives of their own fucking children. What sort of a country is the UK becoming? It's an absolute scandal. Oh dear. And the thing is, when the grooming gangs is mentioned or is brought up, the mainstream media, the government, are so reluctant, so loath to speak about it. But when they have to speak about the grooming gangs, they speak in such an apologetic way. As they're speaking about it, their mindset is, I hope I'm not offending any Muslims. I hope the Muslims understand that we have to talk about this for a couple of minutes. It's just shocking, the preferential treatment, the actual terror in politicians' minds, in the mainstream media's minds, to upset anybody who's Muslim in any way, shape or form at all. It's that paralyzing fear of upsetting Muslim which has allowed things like the grooming gangs to develop. It's that fear of saying the wrong thing, about Islam, or Muslims, that has caused unheard of agony, anguish, heartbreak to young English girls. Shameful, absolutely shameful. Now, the mainstream media, the Christchurch attacks give the mainstream media another perfect opportunity to attack the far right, who they believe are the real enemy in this country. But trust me, government and mainstream media don't see Islam, Islamic terrorism, as our enemy. They see the far right, English people standing up for themselves, they see as the real enemy in this country. Don't ever forget that. So the thing is, when there's a terrorist attack that can be related to Islam, it's blanketed in the news. The grooming gang convictions get 1 day, okay? A racist guy in an aeroplane gets 4 days, a white racist guy, yeah? A few mosques broken, windows broken in a mosque, gets 3 or 4 days. It's just, the discrepancy is just, it tells its own story, okay? Now, speaking of the mainstream media, we come to the BBC. Now, these are the stars of the show. The stars of the show when it comes to complete and utter bias towards Muslim and preferential treatment of Muslims. Now, I could make a 2-hour video on examples of this, but I'm just going to give you one. A couple of weeks ago, when the Shamima Begum story was at the height of its powers in the news, there was a debate on BBC and midday radio, and the host was a guy called Nihal Arthanaika. Yeah, I know it sounds like Nihal, I'm a wanker, and that's probably a more apt name for him, because he is the epitome of BBC bias towards Muslims. Now, a white guy texted in, and he was saying that had it been a white supremacist who'd left the country to fight somewhere else, yeah, he'd never be allowed back in. It wouldn't even be an issue. It wouldn't even make the news. Okay, and he ranted on a bit like that in his text, and Nihal shot him straight down, saying, "Oh, I thought this BBC bias nonsense had long passed and everybody had got over themselves and blah blah this, that and the other." Okay, fair enough. 3 minutes later, an Asian guy rang in, and he had the same argument but the opposite way around. He was saying that because Shamima was an Asian, yeah, she's not being let back in. If she was white, she'd be let back in. It's a disgrace how we treat Asians, blah blah this, that. This rant went on for ages. Nihal's response to that rant was, right, let's go to the news. A perfect example of BBC bias. Absolutely no issue whatsoever in slapping down a white radical instantly. But when a Muslim radical comes on, he's tolerated. He'll not be corrected. He'll not be righted by the BBC. Okay? One example, but the most recent one I can give you. Now, another set who, well, it's all the left, but the left wing, yeah, have created all this bias and all this preferential treatment. When you're speaking of the grooming gangs, the left justify the grooming gangs by saying, "Oh well, most paedophiles in this country are white." They're correct, most paedophiles are, but that's because most people are white. But what they refuse to do is to tell you the difference between what a white paedophile does and what an Asian Muslim grooming gang does. Okay, a white paedophile breaks the law. Yeah, he targets an under 16. Okay, for sex. Okay, what the Muslim grooming gangs do, they target a whole community of under 16s. They drug them. Yeah, they rape them. They sell them. Yeah. They threaten them, they threaten their families, okay? And they pass them around among their own families and among their own friends so that these girls are raped by numerous different men, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. So yeah, they're both against the law. Yeah, paedophilia is paedophilia. Sex with an under 16 girl is against the law. So yeah, there's a lot of white paedophiles, yeah? But had the grooming gangs all been white, we would never have heard the end of it. There's been minimum coverage, the very minimum mainstream media could get away with, minimum coverage about the grooming gangs because they were Muslim. Preferential treatment. They're both crimes, yeah, but treated, the perpetrators are treated differently because of their race. Okay, look at the footballer Adam Johnson, yeah, he had sex with a 15-year-old girl. It's against the law. Okay, he went to prison for it because it's against the law, but it was consensual sex with a 15-year-old girl who's nearly an adult, yeah, who's bodily ready for sex, okay, who consented to it, yeah. It's still wrong, it's still against the law, it's still paedophilia, but you cannot equate that to raping, drugging 12, 13-year-old girls repeatedly, passing them around between dozens of men. They're both against the law, but they are two completely different crimes. And yet Adam Johnson's all over the papers, pedo this, pedo that, pedo that. Why aren't the Muslim grooming rapists all over the paper? Yeah? Make your own mind up, okay? Now, the best part of all this preferential treatment, yeah, comes from the LGBTQWXYZ society, okay? Now, Islam is well known as the most anti-homosexual religion, and yet they get a completely free pass from the LGBT. A completely free pass. In fact, LGBT, yeah, stand out there with banners supporting Muslim immigration. Okay. Now, recently in Birmingham, a teacher in the school, yeah, decided he was going to set up a program for 5 and 6 year olds to teach them about LGBT. Okay. Now, the Muslims, the school was 99% Muslim children, so there was families of Muslims outside the school protesting, yeah, day after day, that they did not want their children being taught this rubbish. I agree with the Muslims 100%. 5 6 year old children do not need to be listening to this shit. Okay, but the point I'm making is, where were the anti-protests from the LGBT society claiming the Muslims were homophobic? Because I'm telling you now, if there was 50 white families outside that school protesting the children being taught about LGBT, there would be a counter protest right alongside it, with all them families and all them mothers and fathers being slagged off as homophobic. It didn't happen. Why not? Because the protesters were Muslim. If you got a better answer, get in touch and tell me what it is. Right, so here's the truth. The truth is most people in the UK, yeah, are okay with Muslims. Yeah, they accept the Muslim faith, they accept Muslims living in the UK, they get on with them fine. Yeah, friends, work colleagues, everything. There's a lot of harmony between English people and Muslim people. Yeah, all over this country. Okay, but if you continue to give preferential treatment to one race of people above the other, yeah, and you continue to shut down any conversation or any criticism of a society or a religion, yeah, especially where the criticism is fair because it's about radical issues in that religion. All you're going to do is create more dissent. Yeah, you're going to create more dissent. You're going to create more hatred. Yeah, in weak minds, like the mind of that fucking idiot over in Christchurch. Okay, yeah. The thing is with the left preaches equality among all. Okay, so my message to the left is this: practice what you preach. Okay, practice equality among all. Right, so treat immigrants and Muslims equally to white English people. Yeah, practice what you preach. Yeah, and you'll give us all a better chance. Yeah, for a much more peaceful future. Till next time, take care.